Thank you for being here and welcome to our Agile Austin Leaders Special Interest Group. I'll put someone on mute again. There you go. Please do go on mute if you're joining. Welcome to our Agile Austin community where we collaborate, we connect, and we grow. Before we have our speaker for today, September 2nd, just going to go through a few things. First, introductions. For those of you unfortunate souls out there that don't know who I am, sorry, Max Akesi. I've been a member at Agile Austin for 12 years and loving it. I am actually the founder and the facilitator of this leader SIG. It was founded back in 2010. It's 12 years, folks, 12 years, every month. We're having a blast here. And I'm also the Agile Austin president. I've been on the board for a few years, so it's just been a blast. And I am also an IT senior manager at PayPal. What we do here, why do we meet even every Friday, first Friday of the month? Hey, we meet because we want to share best practices in regards to leading agile transformations. We share, we learn, we collaborate, we grow. That's what we do here, okay? And I've got to say, it doesn't matter who you are. Developer, executive, tester, whatever. If you have an interest in leading agile transformations, facilitating it, being a part of it, this is where you can always learn something new. And how we do it, every first Friday of the month, we have a particular theme, we have a particular topic, and then we have a speaker. And today it's JJ, right? And we'll get to JJ soon. And I would say how we are different. What's interesting is that when you've been involved with something for 12 years, you actually can experience a trend. You actually experience an evolution. And I remember, and Ned was there at the very start, and maybe there might be one or two people the first years. When we talk about how do you lead an agile transformation, we'd be talking about, well, a lot of people don't know what agile is and how to do certain things. Story points. How do you create a story? How do you estimate in story points? How do you actually decompose stories? How do you tell people how Scrum works? That's what we were talking about. Fast forward to a similar topic like today, we talk about psychological safety. We talk about being aware of not burning out. We talk about a lot of team cohesiveness. That is what we talk about because a lot of Agile is mainstream and we have evolved to talk about other ways that we can lead Agile transformations, and we keep on seeing about the team dynamics, the ability to work together to deliver the highest customer value. I think it's just a great thing to see the changes that have happened in our community in 12 years. And who knows where we'll be 12 years from now? Oh my, oh my. Membership and sponsorship. I'm just going to say, go to our agileaustin.org site. We have revamped it in the last year and it's super awesome. You can get all the information very easily. Prior to that, it was a nightmare. But now with the incentive of having members from all over the world, Brazil, Denmark, Mexico, Canada, England, a lot from Austin too. We're keeping strong, but we have really stepped it up in our global branding. And always shout out to our sponsors. And I think that the best thing I can do for our sponsors is to drop a bunch of their links here in the chat, okay? We've got sponsors that do an awesome retrospective tools. Check that out and add the Meloria coaching is Aaron that does some fantastic coaching across the board, and WellSky Healthcare Technology, right? Shout out to our sponsors, and we got a few more sponsors in the pipeline, okay? And we have actually a lot of SIGs, for those of you that might not be aware, and I think that the best thing to tell people is just sign up. Sign up at our Agile Austin meetup page, and also sign up at our YouTube channel. Okay, subscribe for it. We've got only a few hundred subscribers. On Meetup, we have 6,400 people that have subscribed. On our YouTube channel, only like 300 or something like that. So I think there's a lot of value. If you're not able to participate, go see if there's a session that you might be interested in, okay? Sign up and you'll get all the alerts for the SIGs and all of the content that we share in it, all for free, all for free. We are focused on sharing and learning agile practices, values, and principles, and that's what we do. We have an awesome board, not just because I'm on it, but because the board is really awesome. Okay, we've got people like Scott Keelan, the treasurer, who has been around since he was one of the founders, and he's still around on the board. We've got Ben. Angela is brand new. She's our first board member that is not in Austin. She's in Houston, so it's awesome to have her on board. Steve is doing a lot of stuff with a car. He's an awesome vice president. If anything, you want to connect with us at board@agileaustin.org. If you want to ping us to tell us how great we are and et cetera, feel free, board@agileaustin.com. And I will also put in here a link. We have had so many people volunteer for positions at Agile Austin in the last few months, and we've gotten a lot of value from that. We have a director of sponsorship, a director of volunteers, blah, blah, blah. It's been great. It's been great. And I think that this is just a way that we can continue to grow through our volunteer effort, because we are a nonprofit. JJ, we'll get to like in a minute. It's going to be awesome. Tommy Norman is going to be here October 7th. And Tommy has a role that maybe one day I dream to have. He's a CAO, Chief Agility Officer. Hey, Ned, it's a thing. I can be a C-suite executive now. Hey, you know. But I think it's awesome to have someone like that come and just share coaching and leading a growing company. A lot of times when teams grow and organizations grow, it's harder to lead an agile transformation because complexity just grows exponentially with growth, right? So I thought that was stretching the coach. Nad always had to be cheeky. Folks, I can't say it enough. KA is coming up November 9th. Keep Austin Agile Conference. After 2 years, we're coming back in person. Why don't you just go and check out KA? And I'm going to put here in the chat also the link to the meetup in October and our KA site. I mean, I'm not just super excited because PayPal is the title sponsor. Plug there. I'm super excited because we have a lot of sponsors. Like, we got sponsors immediately. There was a lot of engagement from people in the community, and we have people that are already traveling in for the KA. So just know, keep Austin Agile Conference coming back again, November 9th, hybrid flavor. You can be in person and you can be also virtually. Okay, there's going to be an option to join virtually. And with no further ado, I would like to welcome JJ before he takes over control. JJ is going to be here to talk to us about shift left recovery, how to avoid burnout and achieve optimal performance. And JJ, thank you for being here and talking about this, because this is a topic that has impacted a lot of people in the last few years. I mean, talk about global pandemic, talking about habits having to dramatically change, and a variety of other things. So this is something that sometimes is even subconscious, but it's there, and then it just erupts all of a sudden. So round of applause, folks, for JJ here. Okay.
Thank you.
And
thanks, Max.
It's all you, JJ. Let's do it.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Max, again. Thank you, the community of Agile Austin, for the opportunity. I'm also part of it, organizing some of the events as well. So let me first start asking, what are your roles? Let me start getting some of the roles that you are right now into these days in the chat. And also let me know if you can use your any emoji, the one that you want to use, just to make sure that we are going to have some feedback from you guys. Oh, perfect. That's working. Nice. Cool. Scrum Masters. Hi, Alison. Alison is a Scrum Master. Carol is Director of Strategic Initiatives. Good to see you, Carol. Andrew in Canada, if I'm not wrong, Agile Coach. Nice. Anaga, good to see you again there. Melissa, Agile Coach. Morgan, there you are, Training Manager. Kim, Scrum Master. I really appreciate all of you guys. This is perfect. What a crowd. Larette, good to see you. We were talking about this topic the other day. So I promised Max that I'm going to take less than 40 minutes. So I'm going to set 2 timers, one for 20 minutes, pause, and then another 20 minutes. And if I'm going over, you can let me know, please, guys.
Because we
So,
end on time. We end on
yes,
time, JJ.
yep. And so, guys, we are going to put every single question that you may have, write it down in the chat or write it down for yourselves. And at the end of the presentation, we're going to have time. Or if we don't have time, I'm going to drop all my social media links so that you can find me and we can keep up the conversation. Are we good with that? Okay, cool. Great. Let me know when you can see my screen. Are we good? Perfect. So I will skip also the part of the introduction. My name is JJ Ruescas, and I'm a human optimization strategist. What does that mean? Well, this presentation hopefully is going to shed a light on that topic. So let's start with shift left recovery, how to avoid burnout and achieve optimal performance. Let me start with a story, guys. This is a warning tale. It's called Karoshi. For many of us that we are not very familiar with this word, what it happens is that it follows a process. What is that process? How does burnout actually happens? We work, and we keep overworking until we burn out. And that is when we go into recovery mode, right? Anyone there has been in that situation? Let me know with a chat or yeah, thank you, with a hi or an emoji. Thank you.
Yes.
What happens, guys, is that Japan, the country, has had this incident called Karoshi for about 5 decades so far. What does Karoshi mean? Well, the different mindsets within the country tell that people need to give more than what they are giving to themselves, but for the company. So the individual per se is less valuable than the success of the tribe, or in this case, the company. And Karoshi actually means death by overwork. No joke. Think about this. When we have people, knowledge workers, that they are putting 14 to 16 hours every day for 6 days. And on top of that, wait a second, if you leave the office before your manager, that is culturally a sign of you're not part of the tribe. And on top of that, once you leave the office, you have to go hang out with your coworkers to create culture at a bar or at a restaurant. Think about that. Oh my God, if they spent that much time in the office not creating culture, I don't know what they were doing. Now, I'm not saying that they're not hard workers. I'm not saying that they're not productive. Clearly, that is a culture that has taught us so many things, especially in agility, right? But there's this little problem called Karoshi. And this is when people like this guy, this Japanese guy in a metro has suffered, right? They start getting disconnected from themselves and they start letting only the mind to run the show. Well, this is something that has been happening for decades, but specifically in 2015, there was a case that simply hit the entire country. And that was this girl called Matsuri Takahana. Matsuri, 24 years old. She came from a very poor background. She was able to make it into the most respected University of Tokyo. And right after that, she got into Dentsu, the biggest marketing company in Japan. Well, she started working there, and because of the pressure of, hey, I come from this poor background, I need to excel, I need to give more than that they asked me to. Well, it estimated that she was putting initially around 60 to 70 hours a week, and over the next months, because of the inner pressure and probably external pressure, it's calculated that she was putting around 100 hours. You can see even their Twitter account post saying, hey, in 4 months, I have not seen my boyfriend that lives 4 blocks away. Or sometimes I cannot discern when I am dreaming and when I am working. Those are signs of something bad happening. Well, unfortunately, Matsuri at some point got to a point where she couldn't make it to recovery. The only solution for her problem was, guess what? Suicide. That is no good. And we can see here the stats of Ministry of Health from Japan. Causes of death by karoshi usually are heart stroke, heart failure, right? And also suicide. So my question is, how come a human perceives that death is the only solution to a job? Think about that, okay? Thankfully, guys, this is something that we can learn on this side of the planet before getting there. Now, let's talk about why is this guy here? And this is going to be partially a class of a little bit of physiology, a little bit of psychology, and a blend of many things. So this is what I call the convergence point. What it happens is that when we exert physical effort, we're putting our muscles to the test, right? Whether it is lifting something heavy, going to work out, working on a factory and moving things, etc. That is effort or stress that is being put under the body. On the flip side, we have the mind. We are all in the knowledge worker area, and it depends on how good we are, our thinking process goes, and that is what defines the outputs that we create. But these two seem very, very different. And what it happens is that the convergence point here is the central nervous system. And I'm going to talk about this along the presentation, because whether it is an effort, physical or mental, or even a real stress that we're going under or perceived stress, guess what? The CNS, the central nervous system, is the one that reacts the quickest about anything, right? And even to our own thought process. I can name plenty of books around that topic and research if you want. But this is the central nervous system. And when it gets deregulated, first we start having symptoms like even digestive problems, headaches, and so on and so on, that they will take on the mental part. And so it becomes a vicious cycle. So let's put a pin here, because we're going to get back at this point. Thank you, Kim, for the message there. Then, so let's go into what is burnout. Burnout, guys, finally in 2020 was finally defined by the World Health Organization, because before that it was very ambiguous. Now, burnout is defined as the syndrome caused by chronic stress that was not successfully managed in work environments. So let me emphasize, chronic stress not successfully managed. How do we identify that we are in the verge of burnout? Well, there are four symptoms. The first one is exhaustion. Maybe in our case, it's not as much as physical exhaustion, but even though we can feel it right here in the headaches, or even you feel the tension in the shoulders sometimes, or the back, etc. Right? But that is physical exhaustion. We also experience mental exhaustion. Any one of you just got home after work or finished working remotely, and even thinking was something that caused effort, and we were even tired by thinking? That is mental exhaustion, which can also lead to emotional exhaustion, right? So they are intertwined. Second one is cynicism. Cynicism is when we just don't give an F about what we're supposed to deliver. We just want something to end. We just want the sprint to finish. We just want to release to be over. It's like, okay, I could not care less. Let's just deliver this thing. And I perceive that I will have a relief, not even freedom, relief for a little bit. Interesting. Cynicism. Third one, depersonalization. Because of those two symptoms, prior symptoms, we start losing connection with the person that is in front of us. Guess what? We are humans that are hardwired to thrive, first to survive, and second to thrive with other people. If we are not connected with other ones, if you are not right now with me, the information is going to fade away. We just need to get connected here. And depersonalization cuts off that kind of connection, whether it's with a customer or with a colleague at the team. Depersonalization, bad. Finally, ineffectiveness, which means we perceive that our resources are not capable of meeting the demands that we have at work, right? It could be true, or it could be a perception. And that is when imposter syndrome comes, right? Anyone there? Yeah. So ineffectiveness to accomplish what we were supposed to. And this I see not only in people like us, that we are constantly putting things out there. I see this a lot also in startup founders and or company CTOs or CEOs. What is happening is that when I talk to them, they do believe that they self-imposed those demands on themselves, and then they think that they have not enough resources to make that happen. Interesting, huh? So far, how are we guys going? We're good on the same page? Let me know with a thumbs up, or
No,
Yolanda, imposter syndrome. Thank you.
JJ,
Cool.
spot on. And sorry, sometimes I just chime in. I just so appreciate that you're raising the visibility on this and starting off with the story that even if we might perceive that sometimes as an extreme case, that is where things can lead to, right? It can get there. And it just feels that if we don't create an environment and a culture of belonging and understanding that everybody can contribute value in a different manner, right? Some people have to be there in the office, some people don't have to. It's a very diverse, instead of a culture where you should be there for 12 hours and you should be doing this and you like, maybe Agile helps us evolve into a value-driven approach and not like a more culture mindset of how to work and everything. It's just everybody delivers value in a diverse manner, right?
Correct.
Thank you for bringing this up.
Thank you, by the way. I liked what you mentioned. I'm going to start copy pasting your expression maybe at some point. Thank you, Max. So now, guys, let's dive onto stressors, because like I mentioned, stressors not managed properly are what lead us to burnout. So stressor is a stimulus that causes stress or tension, clearly, right? And where? In our central nervous system. Now, we're going to talk about something called neurotransmitter cocktails. I'm not going to go deeper into the neuroscience of this, but I'm going to make you remember the word cocktail because we're going to use it. So neurotransmitters, what it happens is that we have substances that are regulating our mood, our emotions in the body. And for example, when too much stress comes up, we start having a surge of cortisol and adrenaline. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not that they are bad. We need to have a level of cortisol or adrenaline to get focused into something, like right now. But when it goes above what is normal for prolonged periods of time, that's not good. But we start having these cocktails of neurotransmitters. Some of them are cortisol, noradrenaline, or adrenaline. Now, what it happens, guys, is that you may know about this, but it's the frog and the pot. What it happens is that our brains are not designed to manage diminutive or small changes, like the frog in the pot. If I have a kitchen and I get a pot and I get cold water and then I heat it up until it is boiling and then I throw a frog on it, man, the frog is going to burn out and it's going to jump out of it, right? Whew, saved. But what happens is that I have the same kitchen, I have the same pot, I pour water, cold water, then I put the frog on it, and then I start heating it up. We guys are going to eat frog tonight. Frog soup, in other words. Good for us, bad for the frog, right? The point is our brains are not designed to identify small changes. Great, big changes, dramatic changes, so good. But let me ask you, when was the last time that you looked at your fingernails and you realized that, oh man, I need to cut them off, or hair, right? Okay, Max has not that problem, but I do have that problem, right? It goes super, super long. And
We had manicure folks at the office a week ago. Just say, it was awesome.
Nice. And thank you, Ned, as well for the comment. But the point is that, yeah, our brain is not able to see small changes. That is the point. Now, how do we start managing stressors? Well, there are multiple techniques. There are multiple experts, and I'm interviewing those experts. We're going to talk about that later. But how to manage stressors, I will say three main things. The first one is name them to tame them. Which means if we don't see our enemy, if we don't know how to call our enemy, how are we going to fight our enemy? Or how are we going to avoid it? Second thing is being specific. So if I come and ask you, Morgan, for example, what stresses you? And you say, oh, my job, right? That's too broad. It's too generic. I bet you that it's not the job. I bet that it is probably the meetings on Monday with someone in a specific, maybe, right? So the more specific that we can be, we're telling our brain, hey, this is not the entire thing. This is just a little bit of this. And it is this specific thing. So we start changing the narrative in the mind. And third, we categorize our stressors. Now, name them to tame them, be specific and categorize them. In some of the workshops that we have, we go through this. If any one of you would like to do this later after with me, more than happy to guide you through the exercise. But what I want to ask you is this. Wait, are there several types of stressors? Yeah, and I'm not talking about bad stressor, worse stressor, horrible stressor. No, I'm talking about that. Actually, there are two types of stressor, guys, and we need them. The first one is called distress. And this is the one when you feel overwhelmed when it hits you. You feel that your health is deteriorating. You start creating negative thoughts. And therefore, this one is negative stress. This is the one that we really call societally stress, or commonly we call it stress. Oh, I'm stressed. I'm stressed. This stress is the actual name. Guess what? There's also another one. Eustress. In this type of stress, you feel stressed, but you feel like you can handle it. Actually challenges you, and the challenge motivates you. Remember your first day at a new job that you wanted for a while to land on, your dream job, right? It is challenging, but you like it, which creates positive thoughts. Therefore, this is positive stress. Therefore, we have distress and eustress. It's time to start categorizing what is our stress, because if we called everything stress, thinking that is distress, oh yeah, the entire world becomes a catastrophic environment. So even though I know that it sounds like a binary situation, let me tell you this. This one goes into a spectrum, and this is the spectrum. We have behavioral efficiency. How good are we performing on the y-axis, and on the x-axis we have stimulation or motivation to do something. And distress is in two different options. What it happens is that if we are bored, our attention is like, I don't want to focus on this one because simply I'm getting bored. That creates confusion and apathy, which leads to, guess what? Bore out. Bore out is when we want to just quit whatever that we are doing because we are damn bored. Now, that is distress still. On the flip side, too much distress on the stimulation here, and we have impaired selectivity. We become anxious, and we get into disorganized behavior. We start doing things like running for the sake of running without realizing that the goal or our destination is right one step away from us, right? We get into the treadmill of constantly doing things, which leads to burnout. Now, in between those two stages, there is where eustress, the positive stress, lives. And the characteristics of this one is focused attention. We are focused. We have an emotional balance. We're not too anxious. We're not too relaxed. We're not too bored. We're just there in the Goldilocks zone. And our thinking process is still rational. Basically, we're using the best part of our human brain, which is the neural cortex. That's what makes us knowledge workers, productive and efficient knowledge workers. So this is the spectrum, guys. And even though I know that it looks like a huge chunk in the middle, to be honest, it is just as thin as a hair on a string. Is that little to get out of eustress. But that's the fun part. So far, how are we doing, guys? Are we good? Okay.
I've learned something new with the eustress.
Cool, nice. So let me ask you in the chat, guys, what is the opposite of burnout and bore out? Because I used to ask the question, what's the opposite of burnout? And people say, bore out. No, that's the reason I put both. Let me know. What do you guys think?
I will say rejuvenation.
Rejuvenation, thank you. Kind of. Jody, you're getting it. Kim, you're getting it. Eustress is one of the elements of the opposite. I'm going to perfect, Cherry. Great. So breakouts says that. Let's do this. Let me introduce you to flow. We all know flow. Flow is what we call in the US to be in the zone, right? Think about any activity that once you're engaged on this, you forget about everything else. You forget about everything else and time flies by. Well, the official name for it is flow. And it's been studied in psychology for about 80 or 90 years so far. So flow state is defined as the optimal mental state in which a person is performing an activity fully energized, focused, involved, and on top of that, enjoys the process. On top of that, several elements. But let me tell you, this is not as strange. We've all experienced this one. How do we recognize that we are in flow state? Guess what? 4 characteristics. In Burnout, we have 4 symptoms. Here we have 4 characteristics, which are called STIR. What does this acronym mean? Well, this is selflessness. Selflessness is when we lose track of our identity. We forget that we are there. In other words, performing the action. Think about when you're coding or when you're trying to solve a problem. In my case, coding was the definition of problem solving.
The Cornell.
Can you hear me? Okay, sure. Selflessness. That is, we forget about our identity. We lose into the moment. I know it sounds kind of philosophical, but I know we've all experienced this one. Second one is timelessness. Yes, time dilates. And 2-3 hours pass by. We were performing an activity or we were having a great conversation with a person and suddenly time flew by, right? Timelessness. Effortlessness. The activity for the person who's watching us seems like so difficult, but for us, it's like, literally, that's when we're flowing. It's not too difficult. It's not too easy. It's in that Goldilocks zone in the middle, and we can handle it, which creates that eustress. Finally, richness, which means at the end of the activity, man, we feel even better than when we started. We feel great, right? So that is what STIR, the 4 characteristics of flow means, STIR. Now, the funny thing, guys, is that think about this. STIR, if we play around with this, means rest. Interesting, huh? That how flow activity can lead us into recovery or rest and recovery at this point. And we're going to talk about this in a second. So 4 stages of flow. The first one, struggle. Yes, unavoidably, we cannot avoid any kind of struggle, even if it's something that we like to do. For example, I was having this conversation with the CEO of a hedge fund AI company, fantastic things that they are doing. And he was telling me, I love to draw. And I get my notepad to draw, but you know, it's like, what happens if what I draw sucks? He was resisting that thing, even though he loves drawing, right? We all go through a struggle. That's what the initial friction moment, which creates, guess what? Cortisol and adrenaline, distress. Then once we get into the activity and we start performing it, it's like, okay, I had to write this report and it took me so long. Okay, finally I'm in front of this. Click something, we start getting into this. And when we're trying to solve the problem, we find roadblocks, we find obstacles. That is when we can smartly release and say, okay, you know, this thing is not working. I've tried. I'm going to take a quick release, go for a walk, take a nap, talk to someone, etc. By doing so, guys, we're starting to diminish the levels of cortisol and adrenaline, this cocktail, which guess what? Leads us into real flow. Flow is characterized by dopamine. Anything that gets our attention has dopamine at some point. The more dopamine, the more attention that we get, the more dopamine triggers into us, we're going to get hooked into that one. I don't know if it happened to you, but many times I'm in the shower trying to solve something. I was trying to solve something, and in the shower, bingo, I got the idea, right? Yeah, because of that, I decided to get me a waterproof notepad like this one. Yeah, arm distance. So I get it like this. And I do this because my Siri cannot understand my accent. So I had to write it down. So it works. Anyway, but we got into flow, and that is when boom, we went
Too
back into the
funny.
people.
Too
Yeah,
funny, JJ. I mean, I would maybe keep on repeating the thought in my mind until I finish the shower really quickly. But you're like, no, let me jot this down, because you might get multiple ones in the same
right.
shower.
So
Yeah, I gotcha.
capturing is key, and we can talk about that maybe in another presentation. Then flow, but the majority of the people, because we love flow so much, we want to stay here as long as possible. Well, there's a little problem here. Anything that we do in excess turns into an addiction, and I know that lots of people start becoming flow junkies. They just want to live in that state no matter what they need to do, right? And that is when recovery needs to come, because even any athlete, when they perform at their best, they need recovery. Even ourselves, we're mental athletes. When we get into the zone, we need to also be very strategic on recovery and get this thing back on our cocktail balance now. Now, something to mention: struggle involves stress, and guess what? Flow also involves stress. And you guys, some of you already got it right. Flow involves stress. So stress is unavoidable, but we can pick our flavor, in other words. So far, how are we going? Are you good? Okay, cool. Let's keep moving on. So how can I apply this knowledge? Now, okay, JJ, tell me what to do. Well, I developed this thing called Human Ops Framework. Guess what? I used to be a DevOps evangelist, even though I partially consider myself a DevOps evangelist. I consider nowadays myself a Human Ops evangelist. Human Ops stands for Human Optimal Performance Systems. And I have 3 pillars. We're not going to go through them today. It's just a part of it, but they are the physiology, the psychology, and the emotions. And in this cycle that you can see here, one of the most important areas is recovery, right? If there is no recovery, how do we know that we are not getting into a flow addiction, or even we got stuck into complete distress? So when we want to put this in place, many companies come from good intentions, but they will say something like, oh, if you need to recover, and you just need to stretch the body, and something like that is the perception, but this is the reality, right? Or you just need to meditate, especially here in Austin. I love this one. So this is the perception, but the reality is this. And I bet that even this lady here is super cleaned up. I bet that is a mess, honestly, for many people that have kids. Or no, you just need to go for a walk. Looks like this, but the reality is like that. Or if you're here in Austin, as soon as you leave the door outside of your home, your thoughts start evaporating because of the heat, right? Or no. Finally, this other one. You just need to sleep. Looks like this. Reality may be very different. Very different. I know even people that their own snores wake them up. So these alternatives come from good intentions, but they are not realistic. This is my theory. What you really need comes from a background of something called precision nutrition. Now, what the hell does that mean? Precision nutrition, guys, is a modern way to evaluate our DNA, our microbiota, metabolic responses for a specific individual. Each one of us have human DNA, but within that human DNA, we have variations in the chromosome that make the response of this person, of a specific individual, to foods different, and therefore we can determine the most effective eating plan to prevent treating disease. So nutrition, okay, what does it have to do with this? Well, based on the same fact that we have plenty of technology and plenty of research to do this, we can tailor nutrition. In this case, let me introduce you to precision recovery. Precision recovery is evaluating physical and mental capabilities and demands and the response of a person to a specific stressor to determine the most effective recovery plan for preventing or treating burnout. Max, go ahead. Are we good? Okay.
So I was going to say something. I'm like, let me use the hand instead of just interrupting for once. What this reminded me of is national policies that I've seen communicated in some countries, like Germany, for example. If you take time off, you can actually not receive emails. You cannot receive emails. If it's after a certain time, nobody can send you emails. And I was thinking, the first thought is like, why be so rigid? Why you want to micromanage people's time? Let people have autonomy. But maybe they studied things and they saw that when people leave work, they need that mental recharge, or they need something that helps them get to a better state so that when they come back to work, they're actually more efficient, right? And they have all these policies, which to me at first I was like, why have all these? But maybe there's something that even we can learn from, and what kind of things can we do in a work environment? The perfect example is when people take time off. I'm so happy for them. Hey, how was your time off? Oh, I've got hundreds of emails to answer to, I reply to. And it's like, it just feels that, yes, they're happy to take time off, but then there's a consequence to it. Sorry, it just came up as a reaction to what some people say, just take time off or whatever.
Thanks, Max. Because that leads me into the next part, because you mentioned this specific word called experimentation. And we're going to get back to this in a second. But what I want to point out, guys, is that since every single human, we all need oxygen, we all need food, we all need to move. Perfect. We'll need to sleep, but it varies between person. And that is what is going to lead me into the next part and the experimentation, which I'm going to get back to this. Thank you, Max. So precision recovery is how do we tailor recovery for each one of our specific demands and resources. Now, I told you to remember about cocktails. Let me introduce you to a recovery cocktail. What the heck is this? So it is one or more elements, or I call ingredients, that stimulate relaxation and recovery of the nervous system. Stimulate relaxation and recovery. So what happens is that every person requires different combinations, right? Ingredients, dosage, and timing. So for example, when you go to the doctor and you have a headache, the doctor is not going to say, take all of these, take as many blue pills as you can in your hands and just stuff them in your mouth until the headache disappears. That does not happen like that. The doctor is going to tell you, get this specific pill on this, just 2 pills, let's say, every 8 hours. Well, likewise, we can craft our own recovery cocktails depending on what we need, which turns into a practical know thyself. We're bringing the Greeks over here, but we are pairing that up with the current modern knowledge and technologies that we have. Okay, so what are the ingredients? I'm going to show you just a handful of them. I know that this is a handful, trust me. This is not necessary for all of you to remember, but I'm going to give you just an example. I divided them into 3 categories: mild ingredients, medium ingredients, or hot ingredients. And they are also in the physiology, psychology, and emotional, because we can relax and recover those 3 aspects. Remember this, guys. If any of those 3 areas start downgrading, they're going to bring down the other 2. If any of the areas starts upgrading, they're going to bring up the other 2 eventually. So let's say this week for me, I've been working so much in front of the computer that I need in physiology to go just for a walk, because my body trying to do massage or yoga or whatever was going to be taxing. So I'm going to pick walk. Okay, perfect. Maybe I have some problems with my hip or whatever. Okay, great. Let's do that. What about this? Taking less than 30-minute power nap or more than 90 minutes. We can talk about sleep hacks later if you want. Or breathing techniques to cool down the nervous system. Like box breathing, you may have heard about this one. It's very popular. Stuff like that are very mild that we can do at any time. It's low impact and easy access. If we want to go to the next level, maybe getting a massage or doing some yoga, right? This is very interesting. Actually, next week I'm getting my massage because now I already started bumping this up here. And finally, if you are if you really want to impact positively your nervous system and relax it more, I would suggest going to breath work techniques that completely relax the nervous system. Floating tanks that we have here in Austin, several. If anyone's interested, I'm going in a couple of weeks, that deprivate or remove sensory stimuli. Guess what? If you have no stimuli, then your nervous system is going to automatically cool down. 1 hour of floating tank, oh my God, is fantastic. But that is a hot in scale of scheduling it, the price, and so on and so forth. But we can find our ingredients, right? Psychology. I don't call it meditation. I call it contemplation. Contemplating sometimes your thoughts, sometimes your breath, sometimes even going on walks on the nature. That is a contemplative practice, right? Or journaling. Every morning, for example, I journal for a few minutes just to unload thoughts. Obviously, time outdoors, me time, fantastic way to recover. Me time is fantastic. Or let's scroll up here. Medium ingredients in psychology is identifying what are the negative thoughts, the negative narratives, habitual that we have, and start analyzing them. Again, journaling works super well. And I can also suggest a few apps for this one, and we can talk about in a second about that one. Or free flow writing. My practice is specifically free flow writing. What does that mean? I open up a document, I close my eyes, I set the timer for 5 minutes, and whatever that needs to come out of my mind gets unloaded. There's no backspace. Backspace does not exist in my time frame of 5 minutes, and that helps me to purge some of the ideas that may be clogging the system, right? Okay, if you want to go into hot, let's talk about Vipassana retreats. Vipassana retreats are silence retreats that last between 3 to 10 days. I interviewed in the podcast, for example, the CEO of Juiceland, Matt Shook, and he is telling in that interview how one of those Vipassana retreats of even 3 days changed his entire perspective and get him out of burnout. Now, Vipassana retreat, silent retreat, I don't think that that's something a Max or I can do, honestly. That's gonna kill us. Nonsense.
I already said that in the chat. I'm like, what? Be silent for days? Okay, next.
Okay, traveling is also another type of recovery because we're moving away from what we knew into newer context. And obviously, this one is super difficult. Tech fasting. Let's say 4 hours of non-using tech. Oh, yeah, I want to see how that cortisol rises up with that. Or in the emotional aspect, guys, here, emotions journaling. And I would suggest an app called howwefeel.org. One of the best emotional tracker tools. I know that the ladies here, they are more familiar with emotional tracker tools because of their cycles and the apps, but the guys, that one, fantastic, fully free app. I can send more information on that. Also using aromatherapy, because for example, the smells, yes, thank you. Is that oil? What kind of oil? Yeah, perfect, Max. Why? Because for example, from all of our senses, smell is the only one that bypasses certain filters that we have. So basically it has a shortcut to relax our nervous system. Wow, interesting, huh? That's the reason when we're walking and we smell a perfume, it reminds us of someone else or a situation. Anyone happen like that? Did anyone have that situation? Yeah, I see Morgan laughing. Yeah,
lavender based, my favorite.
Great. Yeah, we can pick ours, right? And also snacks. What it happens is that when we're eating something, our body is releasing endorphins, which are neurotransmitters that simply calm down again. But we can go on to that on the medium, for example, emotional regulation or focusing on other people. Guess what? That is a good way to leave our narrative aside, our distressful narrative, and connect with other ones. Or finally, in hot, I would say CBT or other type of therapies or trauma release, plenty of those ones. Like I said, this is just a handful. I don't want to get into this too much, but if anyone's interested, super happy to answer questions later. Okay, we're getting there. But wait, I don't have enough time, right? You gotta be kidding me, JJ. How am I going to make this happen? Well, guess what? Rituals and experimentation. We humans are hardwired to respect what we consider sacred, whether it is religious aspect, whether it's even Labor Day. Labor Day is, no, we respect Labor Day, right? Great. Likewise, in Agile, we call it ceremonies for a reason or rituals, and we respect them. So we have our rituals here, our Agile rituals. I'm going to use the word ritual so that it gets more attuned with what we're saying. But I also suggest to add experiments. What if we would start experimenting with these other rituals incorporated? Since we are so good at attending our daily stand-ups without questioning why we're doing this, and it became a habit, we can also start adding this kind of other rituals. For example, the daily recovery, something that it takes you 1 to 10 minutes. You can do it multiple times a day or at least once, but checked every time that we do it, like daily stand-up. Or weekly recovery, something that takes that you will invest 1 to 4 hours in the activity, whether it is resting or flow. That's the beauty of this. And then monthly recovery, something that will last 1 to 48 hours, that could be intense, or it could take longer to develop, but that you're investing in yourself. So basically, these ones are investing experiments. These ones are at the individual level, right? And Max was talking about, how do we apply policies? Have they done any kind of research? Yes, I bet they have done. And at the same time, I would suggest to do collective experiments. Let me give you an example. I was having a conversation with a CTO of a company a few days, last week actually, and he was telling me how he decided to put every Wednesday. He realized that his entire team was burning out, and he told them, guys, if you don't stop working, the CTO, if you don't stop working, I'm going to go unplug your computers, when they used to go work in an office. People said, oh, okay, boss. And he brought a bunch of beer. All of them were guys, and they said, now we're going to relax. And everyone was clueless. But guess what? That silly act created a culture that every Wednesday after 4 p.m., they were going to chill. And that became ingrained in the culture of the team. And it was prized. So the entire team loved it. They knew that they were going to have that release. So how do we put this into practice as well in a daily life? So this is what I call recovery and flow calendaring. This is one of my weeks, but look at this. We zoom in, we can see here, recovery, 10-minute recovery, or we can do also flow. And if we have this in our agendas, if we see it, most likely we're going to make it happen, because that same one is what it happens with our daily, our planning, our retros. Well, we can add these ones here as well. And those are cues for ourselves to respect the agreement that we have with ourselves. So far, how are we doing, guys? I know that. Are we good? Okay, just
Very
another.
good. This is awesome.
Another 20 more minutes, and I'm gonna be done with that. Just joking. So just to finalize, guys, how did agile teams optimize for quality? Think about this. The reality in software was like this, and I'm taking software, but it can apply to any other industry. There were requirements for a short period of time, or a period of time, planning, coding, and testing, because there was a deadline. The reality was that requirements take shorter, maybe planning and coding longer, and tests just fell down the cracks. And who found the issues, found the problems? Customers. That was loss of reputation, loss of money, loss of so many things. Well, the change happened when we decided to, guess what? Do shift left testing. We started moving testing prior to release of anything, and that changed many things. Don't get me wrong. So how do agile teams optimize for recovery? We have seen at the beginning of this presentation that this is the natural way of, or the standard way of working. Work, burnout, recovery. Now we know that we can apply shift left recovery and start behaving as mental athletes. Recovery, work, recovery, work, recovery, work, pull in, pull out. Nice. So just to finalize, guys, we talked about how to choose your own flavor of stress. Now you know that there are 2 types of stress, it's not just simply one. We've talked about how shift left recovery before the struggle. We can move the struggle like this. So if things start in flow with struggle, we can move it to recovery so that we get back always to recovery, right? That way we're not missing recovery, which is super useful. Third, we can ritualize recovery and flow. Finally, we know the story of the fisherman and the businessman, right? The businessman is on a beach drinking pina coladas or whatever, chilling, relaxing, and he sees this fisherman and he comes with a few fishes that he caught, and the businessman says, hey, how did you get that? And he said, oh, I'm a fisherman. And is that the only caught that you get today? Just a handful full of fishes? Yeah, that's the only thing that I need. It's for me and my family. Oh, interesting. So how do you spend your days? Oh, in the morning I usually go fishing. Then I come back, and in the afternoon I take a nap, 2-3 hour nap. Then I'm chilling with my wife, and at night I go play the guitar with some friends. That's it. And so the businessman said, well, let me tell you, I can help you increase this thing that you're doing so that you have a higher standard of life, right? And that is, why don't you and I start partnering up? I'm going to help you organize this so that you get more fishes, and with more fishes, you're going to have more customers, and with more customers, you're going to have your fleet of boats. And once you have your fleet of boats, we're going to take you to the city, and we're going to get you an office in a building, and because you're going to start creating an empire. And once you're there, you are free of doing whatever you want. And at some point, you can go to a beach and relax with your family in the morning, have a conversation with your wife, take a nap, and get around with your friends, right? We know this story. And many people say, wait a second, but this is the story where, okay, happiness can be achieved right now. Well, my point is this: happiness can be achieved right now and over there. So in this case, it's not that the businessman is bad or the fisherman is ineffective. I suggest two things. We can be as effective as a businessman and as relaxed as the fisherman. We can be both at the same time. That is my second moral of the story. So what's one thing that you guys take from this presentation? Please write it down in the chat. And I have some gifts for you here.
What? We even get stuff? No.
Nice. Thank you. And I'm going to read the chat later so that I get focused on this part. And guys, I really appreciate, Max, the opportunity. I got you this. You can find these resources in this link or also in the QR code. So the first one is Burnout Calculator. Please take it. And it's completely anonymous, and it gives you guidance on how much risk are you experiencing at some point. And if it's low, if it's high risk, it's going to give you cues to downregulate. If it is at a stable point, it's going to give you cues to keep up like that and get you more versed on this. So that is this one here. Then I have the podcast called Optimizing Me, where we talk with different experts on optimal performance, which also includes how to avoid burnout. And you can find episodes in Spanish and English there. I'm putting every 2 weeks now, we're releasing, that's our release cadence. And I'm going to put in October a course on how to avoid burnout. So I open up a wait list for anyone that is interested. It's going to be fully virtual, very low stakes, because I don't want to burn you out with the how to avoid burnout course. So if anyone else is interested in keeping up with the conversation, let me get you here my content.
Yeah,
that's
and
it.
JJ, I was just thinking maybe you can post a link to this deck if you have it on the meetup, and post a lot of that stuff there too, so that some people also that might have not been here, we can have that too. But as we're about to conclude, round of applause for JJ. Hey, folks. For folks that, I mean, I don't know how you felt, but I learned something new today. And I think that is the key thing about the Agile Austin Leader SIG. I see heads and everything. And the only thing I'm going to ask as we're about to leave is if you can turn on your camera so I will take a snap of a Brady Bunch picture here, okay? And I got, yes, thank you, because but Peter, thank you, Clement, I see you, and Lorette and everything. Hey, and as you're turning on the camera, the one thing I really learned, JJ, is that we can not only focus on ourselves, but let's try to focus collectively as a team, because sometimes our fellow teammates are going through things, and the most productive and efficient Agile teams are the ones that everybody is fully there and functioning properly. It's just a fact, right? You're doing things so quickly, depending on each other extremely. You have to do it. Okay, folks, I am taking the picture. So smile and act as if you're having a good time. There you go.
Just pretend. Just pretend, guys.
Just pretend. Continue. Continue. All right, I've got you. Okay, folks. Have a good Friday. And if you're in the US, Labor Day or weekend, and stay agile, my friends, until the next time. Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Stop recording.
JJ, hold on. Let me stop recording right now. For the people that are watching the recording, we're stopping right now. Bye.